G'day guys and girls, welcome back to SideQuest Gaming, where we take a look at both old games and new to try and uncover some of those little hidden gems you might want to give a crack and try out for yourself. Today we're doing our weekly wrap-up to look at, just touch base on some of those games we've looked at throughout the week. The links to the videos will be below if you want to see them in a bit more depth, but first up, we're going to look at Pioner, or Pioneer. Pioneer is an immersive open-world MMO FPS set in a haunting alternate reality Soviet-era kind of island. Pioneer blends survival shooter elements with MMO mechanics, placing players in a desolate island filled with anomalies in kind of Soviet-era structures and setting. The game emphasizes realism over traditional health bars to an extent. I mean, we are talking magicking like kind of the zone, so kind of Stalker combined with sort of a magic-y type element. It features dynamic PvE and PvP elements, although I'm not as familiar with the PvE style part of this game. I didn't really get into it in the demo. Players must navigate the anomalies, manage resources, and engage in both solo and cooperative missions. The visuals are gritty and atmospheric. Really cool looking game. Like, it does have really good graphics. It's really interesting. So, if you're a fan of a survival-based MMO with a unique setting, Pioneer offers a compelling experience. However, there are some optimization issues at the moment for performance, so it's worth keeping an eye on for your particular hardware and setup. And it does have a really cool setting, but you have to be into MMOs to really kind of get into it. Holstin. Holstin is a survival horror game that kind of really harkens back to the kind of old Resident Evil style gameplay. It's set in a small Polish town in 1992, and Holstin immerses players in a pixel art world filled with psychological horror and mystery. The game combines point-and-click adventure elements with survival horror, featuring dynamic camera angles that enhance exploration and tension. This is the kind of hook. This is the sale point to me with Holstin. It's got a fantastic mechanic where you just zoom straight into third-person mode for all the combat. So you're looking at the point and click from top down, and then zoom, you're straight over his shoulder and you're shooting from that position, which I really enjoy. Holstin boasts hand-drawn pixel art complemented by 3D dynamic lighting, creating a visually striking and immersive environment. The atmospheric audio design intensifies the sense of dread with ambient sounds and music that keep players a bit on edge. It's got a really weird feel to it, some really strange comedy that kind of lands and kind of doesn't, depending on the situation. It is a very dark game, so for enthusiasts of survival and horror games with a bit of innovative design, Holstin does offer a bit of a fresh and engaging experience. So the unique mechanics alone make this a bit of a standout and worth taking a look at. Cultist Simulator. Cultist Simulator is where you get to lead a cult, if you've ever dreamt of that. It's a narrative-driven card game that delves into the occult and the unknown. It's a bit of a roguelike deck builder that immerses players in a Lovecraftian world where they must build a cult, uncover hidden truths, and navigate the dangers of, what it is like to run a cult. Police coming after you, that kind of stuff. Players use cards representing actions, resources, and concepts to progress and take over this kind of fictional version of what I would guess is America. The minimalist design features evocative card art, and a clean interface allows players to focus on the narrative and strategic elements of the game, and the unsettling atmosphere kind of underscores the story that is kind of taking place in this world. It's a unique experience for players interested in a strategic gameplay, but it does have quite a steep learning curve. I got absolutely stomped in my playthrough of this game. It is an interesting take on the card deck builder mechanics. I'm not sure I am completely convinced by the gameplay loop within it. To me, Cultist Simulator is strongly carried by the aesthetic, the art style, and just the concept of running your own cult. I think that's fantastic. The loop of the gameplay is still a bit up for grabs for me. Scavland. Scavland is a hardcore survival game set in a post-apocalyptic Soviet era. kind of think Stalker if it was top-down pixel art action RPG. So Scavland places players in a world ravaged by war and the deadly mist, where survival depends on scavenging and resource management. The game emphasizes looting, crafting, and taking on risky jobs to survive. Its top-down perspective and challenging gameplay demand strategic planning. The combat is fairly brutal in this game. I got absolutely handed to by a pack of rats and a dog. Crisp, pixelated visuals and detailed environments create an immersive and gritty atmosphere, and the sound design complements the game's tension. The gun effects in particular are fantastic in this game. For fans of survival games, Scavland offers a rewarding experience. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on if you're into these kind of games. Starless Abyss. Starless Abyss is a deck-building roguelike set in a Lovecraftian sci-fi universe. I really looked at a lot of Lovecraftian games this week and a lot of kind of Stalker-esque games. That was kind of the theme I accidentally fell into. Players navigate a cosmic horror-infused galaxy facing eldritch entities and unraveling a dark narrative. You kind of run this... Either you go down like a technology route or an occult route as you kind of lead your spaceships throughout the galaxy. The game combines strategic deck building with a roguelike exploration, challenging players to adapt their tactics against overwhelming odds. The deck building mechanic and the kind of tactical turn-based combat of your little fleet of ships is quite satisfying, and it does have a gameplay loop very similar to FTL in a number of ways, obviously without the ship internal management systems. I found it quite satisfying. The node-based progression system and the card-based combat combined with kind of the tactical grid-based positioning of your little fleet come together quite nicely to kind of create quite an engaging little tactical experience. So if you like tactical turn-based combat and you're partial to deck builders, this is one to keep an eye out, particularly if you've got a bit of a thing for Lovecraftian sci-fi. Hellclock. Hellclock is a fast-paced action RPG inspired by a dark chapter of Brazilian history. It's set in the 19th century Brazilian Badlands. Hellclock blends historical elements with roguelike ARPG mechanics. Players navigate 14 floors of intense combat, utilizing a skill tree, various relics, and customizable builds to overcome challenges. The game's cartoon visuals are really well done. They align well with the tone. They offer a really distinct and consistent aesthetic that complements gameplay. I particularly like how it's got this kind of like black outlines and the really red look to everything. It feels quite unique and very impactful. The sound design's fantastic and fits with the soundtrack for a really responsive combat experience. And, you know, each encounter, each run-through feels quite satisfying. The actual Hellclock, the timer on it, provides a really interesting approach to a action RPG in that you have a very predictable time limit to each of your run-throughs, which does create a unique experience and wasn't as annoying as I thought it would be. It was actually quite satisfying. I like that. So there is quite a bit of replayability there. I am unsure about the kind of way that you double down on singular mechanics. So each run through you tend to really focus on one or two of the skills. And I do think that that might be a bit of a barrier to the diversity of gameplay in the game itself. However, the time I've spent with this game, I've really enjoyed and thought was really engaging. So it's definitely want to keep an eye on if you like these kind of roguelikes, because I think it's got quite a lot of potential, particularly with how responsive the gameplay feels. Anyway, that's been SideQuest Gaming. This is our weekly wrap-up, so have a look at the links below for any of my videos going into a bit more depth of the first impressions for any of the ones we've just covered. And as always, have an amazing day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.